Hello beautiful people, welcome to my channel. Today's recipe, this beautiful fruitcake. In this recipe we have mascarpone cheese, homemade. Then we have the raspberry sauce, which is also homemade. And we have sponge cake and cake frosting. It's very beautiful, it's very delicious and easy to make. Let's start off with the mascarpone cheese. For that we'll be taking 500 milliliters of heavy cream or fresh cream. Stir over medium flame. Make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. Switch off the flame as soon as it starts to bubble and add some vinegar to it. Stir slowly until it curdles slightly. It will not curdle like milk. The consistency should be like this. Keep stirring, and now let's take a muslin cloth and pour the contents into the cloth. The technique is the same as we make cheese. Leave it for 2 hours so that the whey separates. Now the whey has separated. We have our mascarpone cheese. It's ready. You'll get pure, unadulterated mascarpone at the fraction of a price. Store it in an airtight container and keep it in the fridge. This can be used for 5 to 7 days. You can also use mascarpone which is brought from the store, but I like to make my own. Now let's prepare the raspberry sauce. For that we'll be taking some water, which is around 100 milliliters. To that we'll add 200 grams of raspberries. Add 2 tablespoons of sugar and cook over medium flame for 10 minutes. Once it is cooked, put it in a blender and make it into a puree. Now strain it through a strainer. Make sure that you strain everything and it should be very clear. We do not want any pulp in our sauce. Make sure that you scrape off from the bottom of the strainer too. Set it aside, we'll use it later. Now let's make our frosting. For that I'm using 500 milliliters of fresh cream or heavy cream. The cream should always be chilled before you start to work with it. Now I'll add 2 tablespoons of ready-made whipping cream powder. This is a very important step. If you don't add whipping powder, then you can use the ice bath for hours and hours and still you end up with runny cream. Now add 2.5 tablespoons of icing sugar and then we'll beat it again. In the meantime, I'd like to thank each one of you for being a part of my cooking journey. I've completed 3 months of my YouTube journey. And without your support, I would be nothing. Now let's add 2 heaped tablespoons of mascarpone and beat until stiff peaks are formed. I couldn't have reached anywhere without your support and your kindness. I am very thankful to each one of you for being so kind and so wonderful. You need stiff peaks, otherwise your frosting will melt. Let's taste. Always taste to check the sugar. Now let's prepare the sponge cake. We'll be taking 3 eggs. Break each egg and put it into a bowl. let's start whisking our eggs. And then we'll be adding 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 tablespoon at a time. Remember, you should always stir the sugar in first, otherwise the sugar will be flying all over the place. Let's whisk further. Tilt the bowl. It will be much easier to whisk when you tilt the bowl. Keep on whisking. Now let's add 50 milliliters of flavorless oil. The oil shouldn't have any flavor, otherwise it will ruin the cake. We'll add milk. It's 50 milliliters. We'll keep mixing until we get a nice pale yellow color. Now we'll add a few drops of essence. Use any essence of your choice. Whisk once more and you're done. Now we'll add 1.5 cup of cake flour. By cake flour we mean we take all-purpose flour, we add baking powder to it, and we sieve it. We sieve it for around 2 to 3 times and the cake flour becomes very nice and airy. Remember, we'll be adding the cake flour in 2 batches. We don't want to dunk everything in one go. The rule is the same. Just mix everything until it's combined. You don't have to over whisk it, otherwise your cake will fall flat on its face. It's done. Now mix everything very nicely with the spatula and pour the batter in a lined tin. I'm using a spring foam tin here because it's very easy to get the cake out of the tin. I'm not a baker, I'm just an amateur, so I always search for easy ways. Now we'll be baking in a preheated oven for around 15 to 18 minutes. Just keep an eye on your cake. It may take a longer or a shorter time. Now let's assemble the cake. Cut off the edges and divide the cake into 2 equal parts. Take a lined tin, spray some water. It's mixed with sugar. Add the frosting evenly. Make sure that the frosting is all the way to the sides of the cake tin. Now let's add the other piece of cake and spray sugar water all over it. We want our cake to be nice and soft and moist. Add another layer of frosting, spread it evenly and freeze up to 3 hours. Get the cake out of the tin. Be very careful. Oops, let's pretend nothing has happened. Now we'll take the raspberry sauce and pour all over the cake, and we'll place the cake in a bigger tin and we'll pour more frosting all over it. This way we'll not have to frost it on a turntable because it's very tough to frost on a turntable when you are an amateur. If you are a baker, then you don't have a problem. You can frost it on a turntable. We'll be freezing this for 1 hour. After 1 hour, you can get the cake tin out of the refrigerator and we'll get the cake out of the tin and we'll start decorating. You can decorate with the fruits of your choice. It's very easy, it's very simple. Just stick the fruits on the cake. The cake is not yet set, so it's very easy to stick the fruits on. Here you are, it's looking very beautiful. Put more fruit pieces on top of the cake. You can use any fruits of your choice. This cake is very delicious. It's very easy to make. When an amateur like me can make it, you can also make it. I hope you are really enjoying this recipe. Now for the final shot, we'll just put our fridge to the highest level of cooling and we'll place the cake to freeze for at least 3 hours. After 3 hours, your cake will be ready. Thumbs up if you like it. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. See you later in another beautiful and exciting new recipe.